Nigeria police force is being modernized to present-day trends in global policing. In that light, old, dilapidated police stations and barracks are gradually giving way to modern state-of-the-art infrastructure, in addition to officers' welfare, training, health, and general well-being. Now, that's talking about the Nigeria Police Trust Fund, which was established in 2019 by an act of parliament to accelerate transformation of the force for strategic direction in policing and ensure operational efficiency. This is Reshaping Democracy. I'm Ayodeji Makinde. Now, what was said about the Nigeria Police Trust Fund is just a tip of the iceberg, as the Executive Secretary, Mohammed Shaidu, is on the program to chronicle the journey so far. He did that, offering lots of revelations on work done so far as he answers citizens' questions.
How is the trust fund prioritizing modernizing police infrastructure, and what are the key areas of focus and timeliness in your respective office, sir?
The Police Trust Fund, as we know, is an intervention agency that has been created to support the Nigerian police force. And it comes in phases of infrastructure, projects, equipment purchase. One of the major focus that we've had since we came on board was actually to focus on the infrastructure of the Nigerian police force, particularly the police stations and the barracks. We're very particular and concerned with the welfare and how our police officers operate. So one of the major places we've looked into is rehabilitation of barracks across the Federation, and also construction of new police officers stations. We've actually even coined as far as smart police stations across the Federation, which we have launched about 7 new of those stations across. We did one in Abuja. We recently commissioned one in Ekiti about a month ago, if I'm correct. Upgrading of training institutions is also another key aspect that we're looking into, because we feel how you train your police officers. Basically, I was having a conversation yesterday with someone and I said, for much is given, much is expected. How we train our police officers is quite key. So we've also looked at the training institutions as a place that we should go and upgrade and make sure that our police officers are 21st century capable of achieving the security challenges that we have. So as we mentioned earlier, we looked at smart police stations, infrastructure across not just barracks, police stations, but also the training institutions.
What is the funding allocation strategy for equipment? How will you ensure transparency and speedy procurement in response to the growing complex security challenges in Nigeria?
So when it comes to allocation, one of the things we primarily do is we engage, of course, with the Nigerian police force, specifically with the Office of the Inspector General of Police, which we do have needs assessments. So by the time formations across the country have sent out what it is that they need for them to be able to perform their functions better, we as an intervention agency for the police force comes in and provides this type of equipment based off of the needs of the Nigerian police force as a whole. And when it comes to transparency, we have the procurement processes. So we have agencies like BPP that also help into your procurement process. So we make sure that we handle and we go through those offices, and when we're about to make decisions or we want to purchase, we also have our tenders board. Recently we had an MTB with the Ministerial Tenders Board based off of some projects that we wanted to carry out, especially when it came into the renovations of police stations and also the rehabilitations of training facilities across the Federation, which goes in hand with the renewed hope agenda of Mr. President once he called upon security training facilities to be checked up upon all around state governments. That was recently headed by Governor Peter Omba of Enugu State. So we on our own as a trust fund have looked into some of these facilities to see how we can go ahead and do the rehabilitations for them.
What initiatives are in place to improve the welfare of police officers, including housing, health care, and insurance?
Welfare is our primary mandate. For anybody that has known me since I've assumed this office as Executive Secretary has known that there's one cry I always call for. And it's what I also mentioned earlier. I said for who much is given, much is expected. It goes back to the welfare of the Nigerian police force. I'm a police product. Now, the major problem that we have is welfare issue when it comes to the Nigerian police force. So we shouldn't, as of today, I keep saying what the miracle workers we have as police officers today, based off of how their welfare is not something to look home to. But we as a trust fund, we have looked at the welfare initiatives that cross across housing. For instance, we have agreements that we have signed with family homes funds. We're looking now with the current Inspector General of Police on how we can build homes across all 36 states, including FCT making 37, for police officers. But we don't want to even coin them barracks. We're looking at a way whereby police officers across all own their own homes. Anywhere else in the world, you look at it, those police officers are well catered to. They own homes, but you see in Nigeria now, if a police officer dies in office and he's in the barracks, in less than 2 to 3 months, they're kicked out of those homes. So there's no sense of, I won't just even call it pride of the office, but you don't have a sense of entitlement into the job that we do. So we as a trust fund, we've looked into housing. We're currently building barracks and 6-man rank and file. Part of what we did in Ekiti was also the housing, but we're looking to expand and see how we can do it on a larger scale that would cut across all states in the Federation for police officers to own their own homes. When it comes to healthcare, we're also rehabilitating most of the medical facilities. I just had a meeting recently with the AIG, Force Medical Office, and we're trying to see how even the clinics, we not just rehabilitating them, but actually including things like health insurance for police officers. They do have it, but they are not, what's the word to use? They're not accessing these facilities as much as they should today. So we're trying to make sure these things are accessible. That's healthcare insurance, not just even for the police officer, but for the relatives of the police officers. We have agreements that we've currently also signed. We've kicked off with NALDA, whereby relatives, dependents of police officers can be farmers. So that also increases the revenue, welfare and feeding that comes into those homes. So across board, welfare is a major focus when it comes to this police trust fund, because we believe that a well-catered, well-taken care of police officer will discharge his duty well for us.
How will the trust fund support training and capacity building for police officers to stand the test of evolving policing?
Welfare is one of our major focus points, but second, we also look at training. My training, as I'll say, is charity begins at home. Is how you school these officers. So we as a trust fund have, I think the first thing I even did as an executive secretary coming on board was actually training of police officers to see how we can meet the 21st century policing. So we want to see how our police officers can meet up to that standard. And for us to be able to meet up to that standard, we have to train and retrain. So we have done things on training on not just counterterrorism, but as far as IT training, we've done hostage negotiations. We have a wide variety of trainings, which we concluded our last training that we did for police officers about a month and a half ago. And we want to also move on to the next phase. Today we just agreed to see how we can train officers for the upcoming election. So we want to also make sure that not just having your police officers 21st century compliance when it comes to their training, but across board for them to be able to provide their functions and their duties for us as Nigerian citizens well.
Yes, sir. Can you please share with us, the citizens, some examples of key successful projects that the Trust Fund has implemented so far and their impacts?
Rehabilitation of police stations, the rehabilitation of police stations and training facilities. We've done at least, I think, about 170 something of those projects. Training of police officers, even currently we're trying to do about 10,000 for this year, especially for the election. We have started, the last set we did was about 3,000 this year between January and March. We're going to go on our second phase for another 3,000, which will come in the next month or so. And so in the past, our major focuses has been training, and like I mentioned earlier, the smart police station, and also rehabilitation of training facilities, barracks, and those police stations, enhanced with purchasing of operational equipment for the Nigerian police force.
Sir, how is the Trust Fund engaging with communities and civil society organizations to ensure policy reforms are inclusive and effective?
As a product of a police home, I know that policing is not just the function of the officer in uniform, but also the function of the citizens of such neighborhood or area. Now, one thing that we have done over time, especially when it comes to the stations that we've built, is engaging those communities. There's a question they always ask, and I always throw it back to say, this police station is not for the police officers, but it is for the community as a whole. Because a crime is being reported, some things happen, the first place you would go to is that police station. So in those places, we try to engage the communities to let them know that the police is part and parcel of you, of your day-to-day. So more of, don't look at it, don't look at a police officer or look at the barracks or look at the home as an isolated place, but try to inculcate the habit of inclusiveness for those police officers, for those police facilities. So as much as we as a police trust fund can provide such, we leave it for the communities and the people of those communities to not just maintain those buildings or those projects or those equipments, but also to add value to such, because policing is me and you. That's just the truth about it. It is me and you. So the more we engage our communities, the more we engage stakeholders, people in our environments, in our environs, I think it will help in our policing strategy. Even for information gathering, that's where we talked about this whole community policing. Community policing is for me and you as regular citizens to be very, to add value towards the policing of our communities.
Yes, sir. In what ways does the Trust Fund intervention help in redeeming the image of the Nigerian police and also improve its operational capabilities?
I will always hammer on the fact that maybe coming from a police home, I can definitely not just feel, but I grew up in that system. So understanding that things have to change and understanding how things need to change is part and parcel of what my mandate is here to deliver. And so we have to change that image. And it is this engagement is part of the things that we are doing to actually change that image, for people to actually know that there is a police trust fund, and these are the things that we are doing for the Nigerian police force across board. So the smart police stations, the rehabilitations of training facilities are things that we know that once these facilities are rehabilitated, you would definitely, I had an interview where I told people that if the current state of our training facilities is what is producing the current state of our police officers, until we change that, and thank God for this current leadership with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, we have gotten it right now, that we have a president that is very particular when it comes to the police force as charge for the internal security, and he has seen that the problem that we have in policing in Nigeria goes far back as the training facilities, what we've mentioned earlier, barracks. How do we change those narratives? And currently we are ongoing. Currently these processes have started whereby the training, and it goes back, by the time we can train these officers, we would see that even the officers we see day to day on the road, maybe on the checkpoints, even the traffic wardens, they will be well presented, and also they will know their job functions better.
What is the partnership being put in place with the security agencies, other sister agencies, in order to enhance policing system and within and outside the country in order to meet up with the mandate of delivery?
When it comes to partnerships with other security agencies, that's a question that goes to the headquarters, because that's more operational. But when it comes to the partnerships that we have done here to affect the welfare and the operationalization of the police force, I would mention, like I did earlier, if you notice with our smart police stations, we had an agreement that we signed with REA, that's the Rural Electrification Agency, on how they can solarize police stations across for us. Currently, REA MD Abba is actually also taking charge to do the solarization of the force headquarters. Recently, with the current IGP Olatunji Disu, we were coming out of the building, and his first thing was like, "ES, why is this building dark at night?" And I said, "Oga, we've always been having this issue, but how can we get it done?" We called in, so it goes back to strategic partnerships, and we called in REA, which currently they've started on how they can also energize the force headquarters and also other buildings. We have agreements with Family Homes Funds, which I mentioned earlier, on how we can make police officers homeowners, not barracks life. We're talking about them owning their own homes across the country. We also have agreements with NAUDA, which is the Nigerian Agricultural Land Development Agency, on how we're clearing, we're doing cluster farms, whereby dependents of of police officers are farmers. These agreements are currently ongoing, and we're getting traction. We're moving, doing some of these things. REA, as we've seen with the smart police stations across that we have commissioned, those are ongoing. Family Homes Funds, we've gotten lands from states like Enugu, and we're going ahead to see how we can build units for police officers in those states. Currently, we met with the Minister of Communication. We want to see how we can also tie in the AI and having a lot of internet connectivities and based off of our smart police stations. This was also with an agreement we had signed with Galaxy Backbone to see how they can provide solutions for us, smart IT solutions in those police stations across, and also for training facilities, for the training institutions. So there are a lot of ongoing efforts and ongoing partnerships across board with different agencies and different ministries to see how we can propagate and move our agenda of a more productive, a more trained, capacity-oriented police force.